That's a good point, actually.
He is able to get those cards 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever, where he was taking his early picks to pick good cards for his deck. And he's like, everyone else who's drafting, and this I got translated from the Japanese coverage. It's not an exact quote, but he said everyone else who's drafting, and they're sacrificing these good on-curve picks to have an aggressive deck because they feel like they need the mana fixing. He's like, I've got my mana fixing. It's coming around the table back to me. I took an Aquastrand Spider over. You can't take an Aquastrand Spider over a Simic Growth Chamber in your deck, but I can. Because I'm going to get Utopia Sprawl
coming back. That's actually a really good point.
I think that was a very pointed insight into the format.
The Utopia Sprawl answers that question for the aggro decks. I mean, if he's right, if you can consistently get Utopia Sprawls coming back around, it seems like the kind of thing that once people figure out what's going on in the format, that card's not necessarily going to come back to you.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
But, I mean, he's got them here. What's he got, 2 in his deck?
He's got 2 in his deck. And he's had them in, I believe, almost every deck. And he's had no trouble getting them. Now, I mean, that's again, it's, you come into a Pro Tour and you see that something is undervalued.
That is how you win the Pro Tour.
And that's how you win the Pro Tour.
The other thing, though, is that I'm not sure it's a sacrifice to be taking 3rd pick Simic Growth Chamber. Why is that a sacrifice? That card's
it's a sacrifice if you don't end up with 3 Aquastrand Spiders, which bring your deck to critical mass on turn 4.
I don't see bad cards in this deck. I mean, the format is deep enough that if you get the mana fixers that you can play, 2 in a splash without bad cards, it's just better. I mean, Erin Bachmann's deck, he's got Dream Leash. Terraformer's certainly reasonable. Dowsing Shaman, Bramble Elemental, Null-Made Shepherd, Scatter the Seeds. These aren't bad cards. Gleam Crawler, Lurking Informant.
I mean, but you always look at that deck and say, there's great cards here, because that's what you're taking. You're taking the mana fixing.
But he got it with just 2 in a splash.
Well, his mana might actually be better.
It is. It's 2 in a splash. It's beautiful. This is the beautiful Mike Flores mana that you were saying.
Yes, that's right. His mana is better.
Exactly how you want to draw it up. And speaking of draw it up, the players have drawn their opening hands.
Wow.
They're ready to go with the finals. So we hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to pick Bragman.
I'm going to pick Ozawa. I think this is his breakout tournament. I think we're going to push another Japanese player into this pantheon of great players this weekend.
And I think we're going to put Germany back on the map.
All right.
Going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Got a couple of different angles. Yeah, I mean, Ozawa is the more experienced player. Bragman doesn't have quite as much experience, hasn't been on day before, doesn't have the 4 Grand Prix top 8s. But I think he's got, maybe it's just me, but I like the control strategy. All right, well, we'll see how it plays out. Pro Tour Finals momentarily. Hello and welcome to the Championship of Pro Tour Prague. I'm Randy Bueller. I'm here with Brian David Marshall, and we are getting ready to watch the battle between Sakuya Ozawa of Japan and Erin Bachmann of Germany. There you get a good look at Ozawa. He's a limited specialist. He's been playing with all the Japanese name players in Osaka. He's got 4 Grand Prix top 8s in limited, and finally had his breakthrough performance on the Pro Tour. He's been playing on the Pro Tour for a while, finally through to the top 8. Meanwhile, on the other side of the table, Erin Bachmann, a young German player, part of a new group that's trying to put Germany back on the map, back as one of the powers of Magic. Max Brock made top 8 at Pro Tour Honolulu. He's following up here. Is he going to give that team a Pro Tour win? We will find out. They've had a lot of fun drafting with this Dissension format. Dissension just went on sale on Friday. These guys have been drafting it all weekend, and you can really get to see the format encapsulated in a nutshell in this draft. Tell us about the 2 decks, Brian.
Okay, well, on one side of the draft, we have Ozawa, who's playing a very aggressive deck that exploits the graph mechanic in the 3rd pack.
So he wants to come out, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, smash you, removal, smash you.
Ideally wants to come out with like a Simic Initiate, followed up with an Aquastrand Spider, get in for 3 with the Aquastrand Spider. Next turn, play or even hold back the Simic Initiate and then play a Scrapper and put 2 counters on the Scrapper and in with a 5/4.
On the other side of the table, though, Erin Bachmann has had totally different read on what works in this format, right?
He seems to have drafted. We've talked about consistent versus powerful. He seems to have drafted consistent and powerful.
Well, that's good if you can get it.
Well, it's really hard to get. It's the tension in this format.
Right. He's got mana fixers and he's got good cards. I mean, he's actually managed to have sort of the good card strategy and then only have sort of 2 in a splash. So he's actually managed to get great mana, sort of above average mana from what you can get with the more slow, more controller strategy.
And his mana fixers are great. I mean, the 3 Star Fletchers, you can't say enough about them. They slow down an aggressive deck.
Yeah,
you can't get through those guys with 1/1s and 2/2s or flyers. You need 3 power or better to get past that.
Meanwhile, in the first couple turns of this game, Ozawa has not come out fast, hasn't played a creature yet, played Seal of Doom to take Star Fletcher off the board, but this is not good news for Takuya Ozawa. He hasn't put any creatures into play. We're 4 turns into the game now. Bragman has had time to set up his mana. He played a Signet, he played a Star Fletcher, he played a dual land.
And now he has a Dowsing Shaman.
Dowsing Shaman already in play. This is exactly the way Erin Bachmann wants the game to go. If he can survive the first couple of turns, get his mana put into place, he should be in great shape to really exploit the more powerful cards that are in his deck. Now, both of these decks are good, though. Ozawa's not just an early game deck. That's really when his deck shines, but he does still have some play because he's got some giant fatties in his deck. He's got a bunch of, Rotworms, and here comes the Sporeback Troll trying to get started.
He's got I keep remember with him. He's got Streetbreaker Worm. He's got Cytoplast Rootkin.
Brocklin
Savage, that's really one of the interesting stories of this Pro Tour, has been how the mechanics of the second set, specifically Bloodthirst.
There's a Steamclore weird from Erin Bachmann dispatching the troll.
How Bloodthirst plays into Graft.
Yeah, that's a tremendous synergy.
So you get, you have a Brocklin Savage that has Bloodthirst, and suddenly, you play a Helium Squirter, and that can fly over for 5 because it has counters on it. Your Scab Clan Mauler can block a flyer because you have an Aquastrain Spider in play. It's a really, really elegant and blending of one set into the other, and a lot of people did not talk about it before this tournament. There hasn't been a lot of talk. Obviously, the pros.
They were talking about it by the end of day one.
They were absolutely talking. It was a strategy really focused in San Diego.
Kogari Rotworm comes down for Takuya Ozawa, so he's gotten a 5 and he's gotten a fatty in play. If Bragman has the answer for that, he may be in good shape, but he is going to be forced to deal with some fatties.
The hand we're looking at for Ozawa is pretty powerful. He's got the Brocklin, he's got a Char. Wild Size, Ocular Halo. Oh, he's got the Dream.
Ragworm, Ocular Halo. In Erin Bachmann's hand.
It's interesting. A lot of times where players will have pulled off the Dream, because the mana base is stretched so thin, you won't have as many islands to really go crazy with the Ragworm, Ocular Halo. That's not going to be an issue.
3 blue mana.
That's not going to be an issue for Bragman, who's really essentially a 2-color deck, and all of his red is coming off of
Star Fletcher, Star Fletcher, Is It Boiler Works,
Gruul
Turf, and then
one mountain. One mountain.
So he's only got 1 mountain in his deck, but he's got 6 red sources.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. That's really what you
want.
John Finkel calls those free mana.
Yeah.
He's like, his red is free. He's got 1 red that he has to sacrifice another color for. The other 5 red sources in his deck are free mana sources. He doesn't have to hurt himself in any way to do that. So
he has to bounce the land for the Karus, but
you mean draw a card when he plays a Karu?
Slow yourself down. Give the aggro deck the window.
Yeah. I still like the Karus.
Yeah, I do too. Although in the aggro decks, it's not really what you want to do.
Well, that's and people have been very slavish about the Karus. It's like, their card advantage or this or that. They're not right in every deck. Sometimes you want a Utopia Sprawl.
So Bragman played his Ragworm, and now down comes Cytoplast Rootkin.
Oh, I think there was some confusion over how the counters work. No, counter.
He thought it was like a Thrive, that it put a +1/+1 counter on everybody. In fact, it puts a +1/+1 counter on anybody that has the +1/+1 counter.
Right, which is what he looked like. He was trying to set up turn before when he played the Sporeback Troll. He was hoping to get an extra counter on that.